If you're over 60 and you've noticed your legs shaking just a little when you stand up from a chair, I need you to stop scrolling right now, because what you're about to hear could be the difference between spending your next 20 years independent in your own home or spending them in a hospital bed after a fall that never should have happened. In my 35 years treating patients as an internal medicine physician and cardiovascular researcher, I have watched this exact scene play out thousands of times. An elderly woman rises from her favorite chair, her knees wobble, her hand shoots out to grab the armrest, and she laughs it off with the same 4 words I hear every single week. I'm just getting old. I want you to understand something clearly today, that trembling in your legs is not aging. It is a warning sign, and millions of Americans over 60 are dismissing it as normal when it is anything but normal. Here is what almost nobody is telling you. In a standard 15-minute checkup, your doctor is not running the 3 blood tests that could explain exactly why your legs are failing you. They check your blood pressure, they check your cholesterol, and they send you home. Meanwhile, a silent depletion is happening inside your muscles and your nerves, one that is directly connected to sudden falls, fractured hips, and the loss of the one thing. Every single person watching this video is desperately trying to protect their independence. I have sat across from patients like Walter, a proud, capable man who went from walking his dog every morning to being terrified of his own staircase in less than a year. And I have watched that same story reverse itself faster than most people believe is possible once we identified and corrected what his body was actually missing. So if you or someone you love has felt that unsteadiness, that sudden weakness climbing the stairs, that fear of standing up too fast, stay with me, because in the next few minutes, I am going to walk you through exactly what is happening inside your legs and exactly what to do about it tonight. My name's Dr. William, and for over 3 decades, I have dedicated my career to internal medicine and cardiovascular research, sitting with patients just like you, translating what happens in the research journals into what actually happens in your body. And I want to make you a promise today, one that I do not make lightly. When we correctly restore 3 specific nutrients that the vast majority of seniors are quietly deficient in, leg strength does not take years to return. It begins rebuilding within weeks. This is not a theory. Research out of institutions like Harvard and the Mayo Clinic has established a direct, measurable link between deficiencies in these nutrients and sarcopenia, the clinical term for the progressive loss of muscle mass and strength that so many people wrongly accept as an inevitable part of getting older. It is not inevitable. It is biochemistry. And biochemistry can be corrected. Over the next several minutes, I am going to walk you through what I call the survival protocol, 3 pillars, each one a nutrient your muscles and nerves depend on every single hour of every single day, each one commonly drained by the very medications many of you are taking right now without ever being warned. We will look at why your body needs it, what happens when it runs low, what the evidence from major medical institutions actually shows, and exactly what to do about it starting tonight. This is not about chasing another miracle supplement. This is about giving your legs back the raw materials they need to carry you through the next 20 years, standing tall, independent, and steady on your own 2 feet. You deserve that. Let's begin. Let's start with the first pillar, and I consider this one the master regulator, vitamin D3. Most people think of vitamin D3 as a bone vitamin, and yes, it plays a critical role in calcium absorption, but what almost nobody tells you is that D3 receptors sit directly on your muscle fibers, particularly the fast-twitch fibers in your thighs and hips that you rely on every time you stand up, climb a stair, or catch your balance after a stumble. Without enough D3, those fibers cannot contract efficiently, and calcium, the very mineral your muscles need to fire, is not properly absorbed or utilized in the first place. Here is the number I want you to remember: 30 nanograms per milliliter. Clinical studies have repeatedly shown that when blood levels of D3 fall below that threshold, patients face a dramatically higher rate of sarcopenia, measurable weakness, specifically in the quadriceps, the large muscles at the front of your thighs that keep you upright, and a fall risk that is 2 to 3 times higher than someone with adequate levels, 2 to 3 times. That is not a small statistical footnote. That is the difference between walking your grandchild down the aisle and never getting that chance. I think of Walter here, the patient I mentioned earlier. When we tested him, his D3 was sitting at 18, not dangerously low by hospital standards, but functionally low enough that his quadriceps simply could not do their job anymore. And here's something critical I need every one of you to hear, especially if you are managing high cholesterol or an inflammatory condition. Statins and corticosteroids, two of the most commonly prescribed medication classes for people over 60, actively deplete your D3 reserves. So if you are on one of these medications and nobody has checked your D3 levels, you may be fighting your muscle weakness with one hand tied behind your back. So what do? I recommend, in consultation with your physician, between 2,000 and 4,000 IU daily, paired with dietary sources like fatty fish and egg yolks, because D3 is fat soluble and absorbs best with food. And do not underestimate this simple one. 15 minutes of morning sunlight on your skin, arms and legs exposed if possible, remains one of the most powerful ways your body was designed to produce this nutrient naturally. Restore this master regulator, and you restore the foundation everything else in this video is built on. Now let's move to the second pillar, and this one is deeply personal to me because it is so often missed. Vitamin B12, what I call the nerve signal vitamin. Here is what most people don't understand. Your legs aren't just weak because of muscle. They're weak because the communication line between your brain and your legs has started to fray. Every step you take, every time you catch yourself before a stumble, depends on a clean, fast electrical signal traveling down your nerves, and B12 is essential for maintaining the protective sheath around those nerve fibers. When B12 runs low, that signal doesn't transmit cleanly anymore. The number to watch here is 400 picograms per milliliter. When levels drop below that, patients begin experiencing tingling in the feet, numbness that creeps up from the toes, and what I clinically describe as an unsteady, cautious gait, that shuffling walk where you're subconsciously afraid your legs might not hold you. And here's the part that alarms me most as a physician. This deficiency is very often silently triggered by medications sitting in your cabinet right now. Metformin, one of the most widely prescribed medications for blood sugar management, is well documented to interfere with B12 absorption over time. Proton pump inhibitors like omeprazole, taken by millions for acid reflux, reduce the stomach acid your body needs to actually extract B12 from food, and naturally, after 60, your stomach simply produces less acid to begin with, compounding the problem even without medication involved. I think of Eleanor, a patient who came to me convinced she had early nerve damage from diabetes. Her real issue was a B12 level that had been quietly falling for years, made worse by a PPI she'd been taking for reflux since her 50s. Once we corrected it, the tingling in her feet began resolving within weeks, and her balance noticeably improved. My recommendation is 500 to 1,000 micrograms of methylcobalamin daily. That's the active, bioavailable form your nervous system can actually use alongside food sources like clams, sardines, grass-fed beef, or nutritional yeast if you're following a more plant-focused diet. Restore this signal, and your brain and your legs start speaking to each other clearly again. Now to the third pillar, and this is the one I believe is most overlooked in mainstream medicine, magnesium. If vitamin D3 is the master regulator and B12 is the nerve signal, think of magnesium as the electrical current itself, the mineral that actually powers every single muscle contraction and, just as importantly, every muscle relaxation that follows it. Without adequate magnesium, your muscles can contract, but they struggle to properly release. And that is precisely why so many of you are waking up at 2 a.m. with a searing cramp in your calf or lying in bed fighting that maddening, crawling sensation of restless legs, or getting out of bed in the morning feeling like your joints and muscles have literally rusted overnight. Here's a number that should concern every person watching this. Research suggests roughly 75% of seniors are running deficient in magnesium, often without any idea because standard blood panels frequently don't catch it. Magnesium is stored primarily inside your cells and your bones, not floating freely in your bloodstream, so a normal lab result can still mask a real functional shortage happening inside your muscle tissue. I recommend 300 to 400 milligrams daily, taken in the glycinate or citrate form. Specifically, these forms are far better absorbed and far gentler on digestion than the cheaper oxide form you'll find on most pharmacy shelves. And I recommend taking it before bed, both because it supports muscle relaxation overnight and because many patients find it improves sleep quality as well. You can also work in dietary sources like pumpkin seeds, dark leafy greens, almonds, and yes, dark chocolate, which is one of the rare indulgences I actually encourage. One important caution, and please take this seriously. If you are on certain blood pressure medications or diuretics, magnesium can interact with how your kidneys handle both magnesium and potassium. So this is a conversation to have with your physician before you begin supplementing, not after. Get this electrical current flowing properly again, and those nighttime cramps, that restless, unsettled feeling in your legs, and that morning stiffness begin to fade. Now, here is where these three pillars come together. Because vitamins alone are not the full answer, your body needs a signal that tells it these nutrients are needed and needed now. I call this the chair, squat, plus sun walk protocol, and it is beautifully simple. Twice a day, I want you to perform 10 slow chair squats, standing up from a sturdy chair and lowering yourself back down with control, using the armrest for support if you need it, never rushing, never forcing. This movement does something remarkable. It places direct mechanical stress on your quadriceps and hip muscles, the exact muscle groups we've been talking about this entire video. And that stress sends a biological signal that tells your body to actually use the calcium, the nerve repair materials, and the magnesium you've just restored, rather than letting them sit idle. Then pair this with a 15-minute morning walk in sunlight. This is not just exercise for exercise's sake. That morning sunlight is simultaneously triggering your skin's natural D3 production, while the walking itself reinforces the same neuromuscular pathways that B12, working to repair. This is what I mean when I talk about synergy in medicine. The vitamins provide the raw materials, but movement is what tells your body to build with them. Patients who combine correcting these three deficiencies with this simple daily movement protocol see their strength and balance return noticeably faster than those who rely on supplementation alone. 10 chair squats twice a day, 15 minutes of morning sunlight. That's it. That's the unlock. I want to leave you with something I tell every single patient who sits across from me, terrified they are losing themselves to old age. Leg strength is not lost to age. It is lost to neglect. Your body did not betray you. Nobody simply told you what it needed. And today, that changes. You deserve that effort. You deserve to walk your grandchildren to school, to travel without fear, to get up from your chair without a single moment of hesitation. So here are your three actions starting tonight, not next week, not when I get around to it tonight. First, if you can, get your vitamin D3 and B12 levels checked. And if that's not possible right away, begin your D3 with fatty fish or a morning egg and step outside for 15 minutes of sunlight tomorrow morning. Second, add a magnesium glycinate supplement before bed and talk to your physician if you're on blood pressure medication or a diuretic. Third, do your 10 chair squats right now if you're able, twice today and again tomorrow and the day after that until it becomes as automatic as brushing your teeth. I want you to tell me in the comments below your age and the health challenge you're facing right now. I read every single one, and you are not alone in this. If this video gave you even one piece of information your doctor never had time to share, please subscribe, because I bring you real medical knowledge you won't find in a weekly headline, and share this with someone you love who needs to hear it today, because for them, this might just be the window of opportunity they didn't know they had. Take care of those legs, protect that independence. I'll see you in the next one.